Hey everyone, it's Kitty Martone, the stuff your doctor should know. And I'm coming to you live from deep inside your small intestine. Did you know that your small intestine can totally be affected by Wi Fi, electromagnetic frequency from inside your home? Your microbiome can actually be affected. It is affected by all electromagnetic frequency, but particularly the frequencies that are stronger now, apparently. So, this is who we have again today. I'm so happy that he's joining me on my Age Gracefully month. This month again, it's my birthday, and don't you forget it. It's my birthday next week, November 27th. You can send all gifts to 1507. Just kidding. Um, I wanted to just say that he has been he's been a guest of ours multiple times, Daniel T. DeBon. He was a co writer of Radiation Nation. He is so awesome, and he really has so much information about electromagnetic frequency and 5G and 4G and 2G and all this stuff that can be so confusing. He actually used to help create the technology for the cell towers that you receive your cell phone connection from, like how you receive a signal. Anyway, he's part of that. He was part of that, no longer is. And then he wrote this book that tells us all about how we're basically harming our bodies with this technology and how you can avoid these things. And the reason he's on for my Age Gracefully month is because these electromagnetic frequencies are actually play a huge role in oxidative stress, in the telomeres in our body getting damaged, so the DNA damage, and accelerated aging. So it plays a role in accelerated aging. So, I've talked about it before: sleep hygiene, turn off your Wi Fi at night, all that good stuff. And then we are also I'm doing this incredible giveaway with a bunch of these wonderful sponsors. One of them is DefenderShield, and that is basically a company that provides products that protect you from electromagnetic frequency as best as you can be protected from it. Okay, so these products also have third party studies, so they aren't like woo woo products, they're not like crystals and things like that. Although I love crystals, they can't protect you from Wi-Fi. So these products actually scientifically have the ability to block the radiation from your crotch area, from your brain when you're using your cell phone, from your child's brain, frontal lobe when they are using an iPad, etc., etc. And these gifts are incredible. So I'm not going to list them now, but you can go to healthygutgirl _ on Instagram. That's where you have to play this giveaway. You can't do it from Facebook. You have to do it from Instagram. And it's a huge giveaway. So not only do we have Defender Shield giving us blue blockers and ear pod protectors and all kinds of stuff, laptop protectors, the works. It's going to be amazing. There's there's one grand prize and two runner-ups. And then we also have Truth Treatments. That's my favorite skincare product that is incredible for anti-aging or aging gracefully. And they're all natural. They're wonderful products that are very effective. And I cannot say enough good stuff about pharmacist Ben Fuchs, who was on my last podcast talking about aging gracefully. And they've donated a fantastic gift. And then we also have, oh gosh, guys, guess what? We have Jigsaw Magnesium. So we've teamed up together, Jigsaw and we are now like superheroes together because they are my favorite magnesium. I've never recommended a magnesium. I've recommended one. It was mag glycinate from Pure Encapsulations, only to find out that Nestle bought Pure Encapsulations. So, boo. I am never going to use Pure Encapsulations again. Even if they didn't change the formula, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. They are not an ethical company. They do bad stuff. They've done bad stuff, and we won't go into that now. Maybe I'll do a podcast on that. So no longer. So I've been looking for another magnesium, and lo and behold, I found a very stand-up, ethical company who are a lot of fun, Jigsaw Magnesium, and they've donated a huge bag of their travel size calm powders that you can just take with you. And it's a huge bag, guys. I'm talking like there's so many in here, and they're delicious. They're so good. And they have an SRT magnesium that has B6 in it. And I'm telling you, I love them. So we're going to do a big campaign for the month of December because they are our new sponsor. They're sponsoring Stuff Your Doctor Should Know, and I couldn't be happier. And who else? So Sovereign Labs is donating a big fat bag of colostrum for this giveaway. And they also have a couple of other products, this immune stuff that they have. So you'll get to see a picture of everything that's in the giveaway on Healthy Gut Girl _. Don't forget the underscore, because otherwise you'll end up on some other Healthy Gut Girl's page. Trust me, she's not as fun as me. And so Healthy Gut Girl _. And those are all that we might have some last minute people donate some stuff. So this is a big giveaway, guys. So I really want you to play. And we're going to do the giveaway on my birthday, the 27th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. For those of you that aren't in America, it's the 27th of November, and the 28th is Thanksgiving, just in case you wondered. What else have I got to say? That's it. So enjoy Daniel. He's a wealth of knowledge, and yeah. Oh, that was perfect timing.
Hey, young lady, how are you today?
Good. How's it going?
Very good, thank you.
Good. I have to warn you, our
Okay.
neighbor had to drop off their dog. They had an emergency and they left their dog with us. So we
Okay.
have 2 dogs in the house, so I might have to pause and edit out some barking and stuff. And
That's no problem. I have my puppy dog as well here.
oh, there he is. On cue. So before we actually get started, I want to ask you if do you know anything about telomeres?
No, I do not.
Okay. Because let me see. I thought I saw telomeres and EMFs. Telomeres, I guess they're the ends of our DNA strands. And somehow I read that the EMFs can actually break them or shorten them, shorten their length or something like that.
There's a variety of ways it breaks it down, but it does damage the DNA.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about that. All right. Well, let's just get started. I'm so excited that you're here again.
you would like to be referred to as Kitty?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Well, whatever way you like is fine with me.
Yeah, I'm Kat, Catalina, Kitty. I've heard it all. So it all.
All right.
So how have you been?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Very busy.
Good.
It's almost like people are becoming more and more aware of this, and there are not many places you can go to find accurate information.
Right. I mean, I certainly, it's coming up on a weekly basis now for me.
Yeah.
Used to just be something I would mention in my, when I would see a nutritional client, I would write in their program, just be aware of something called sleep hygiene. And I would just mention it and they would be baffled and never really even consider anything about it.
Right.
And now it's literally, if I'm not reading something about it, I'm being asked questions about it.
Right. And then of course there's the 5G coming along, which is it's really scary.
And it's
I won't say that publicly, but it's really scary stuff.
Well, we're recording now, so you want me to not put that in there?
Actually, we'll talk about it because I love talking about what it is and what it's not. There's a lot of misunderstanding about this stuff.
Well, let's go there. Let's do it. What is it?
Wireless telecommunication has evolved over the last 20, 30 years. And it started with 1G, 2G. And as it progressed higher, we had more capabilities. First, we could just talk. All of a sudden now we can go on a web, we can text our friends. We can do a lot of different things. That's all been operationalized by the technologies that have evolved in the telecommunications industry. When they evolved, so did the way in which transmission occurred. Where before there was a simple analog signal, a wave in the air that touched the cell tower. We now have digital signals, on, off signals that actually go on the carrier frequency and touch the cell tower. And that's where we see the more of the real damage to the cell when exposed long term to these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And it goes up to a hertz is 1 cycle per second. A megahertz is 1,000,000 cycles per second.
Wow.
A gigahertz is 2 billion cycles per second. So you have in up to 4G, up to 2 gigahertz roughly. And I think we spoke about this last time. A microwave oven is 2.3 gigahertz. So when you cook a piece of meat, it heats up the cell, the water between the cells oscillate, and you actually cook your meat. Well, it's literally the same frequency, but it's much less power. So it doesn't cook your meat, so to speak, but believe it or not, the standards prevent the signals from going higher because it's a thermal emission up to 2 gigahertz. With 5G, all of a sudden, they go from 2 to, the next 2 years or so, about 60 gigahertz, 600 billion cycles per second. And it's a digital signal, as I mentioned, on, off. When you see someone take a jackhammer and they put it on a piece of concrete, that jackhammer will break the concrete. But if I take the same load on a cell that's not oscillating up and down, it won't break. The concrete won't break. So it's the oscillating function that's actually doing more damage than the traditional signals. Wow. With 5G, you actually have 2 signals converging on the cell phone. So it's not just 1, it's 2 oscillating signals hitting the cells, the body. So all of a sudden we're being exposed to speeds that the humans never dealt with. In fact, I think we may have talked about this last time. One of the sort of insidious aspects of electromagnetic radiation is the body doesn't know how to deal with it. It's only been around for like 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. It didn't exist in nature. Digital DC extremely low frequency emission does, up around 12 hertz or so. But it doesn't exist in our environment. So our bodies are still trying to figure out what to do with it. And that's why in your practice, you may be seeing more and more people coming in saying, my head hurts. Mm-hmm. My eyes hurt. I can't sleep very well. I get tingling in my hand when I pick up my cell phone. All of these are direct link reactions the body has to the emissions around us. With 5G, we don't know, but up to this point, we know that up to 4G, there's clearly clinical and science that clearly identifies the bioresponse, the stress to the body. We know that happens. And in 5G, we just don't know. There's been no study work whatsoever.
Wow. I mean, I'm going to ask a naive question, but how could they possibly allow this type of thing to go forward without any testing? I mean, I understand how the convenience aspect of it and how it's certainly making things run smoother in many ways, but I just don't understand how they could push this forward knowing that there's been no testing and that the little bit of testing that has been done, or the testing that has been done on the other frequencies, we know cause damage.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a wonderful question. And by the way, the scientific community is asking that question in a very, very loud way. We don't understand how you can, it's really how you can deploy it when there's scientific evidence about previous technologies that we know are endangering the body.
Mm.
And so, how did it happen? Well, there's really a need for the service providers to provide more broadband service, more speeds to the end user. The population's really sort of asking for those kinds of things. And
Mm.
that's to some extent true. I mean, do you or I want to put our cell phones down? Probably not. Um, that's what we choose.
Right.
But when we do, we're loading up the network to provide that. So the 5G really opens up a whole new opportunity for more and more expanded services. So that's the argument.
Mm.
And so that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Or you may want to build out your existing technologies. So that's a counter argument to that.
I mean, would we really notice the difference if they
No,
never even introduced 5G?
no, you won't know.
So what is it then? What is it? Why are they doing it?
So for that potential. But the other reason is, you know, the most costly part of a network is the capital budget associated with the outside plant. It's really, really expensive to run a network. When you go to wireless networks, all of a sudden, all that infrastructure disappears. So there's a motivation by the carriers to provide more service and have less cost to maintain that service. In addition to that, I know you have a cable company, and I'm a telephone company, and I want to go after your business. I want your revenue. Well, if I put a wireless cell tower up in front of your home and you have a cable there, I can provide just as good, if not better, broadband service, so I can actually take your business away. So
Mm.
there's a business motivation. But one of the things I haven't said yet, I don't think, is you really sort of got to be aware of what's going on around in this space because of some of the implications about how we got here with 5G. And this is what I mean by that. I knew a guy, his name was Tom Wheeler, probably 30 years ago. He was the head of the CTIA. It's a cell service consortium representing the cell companies. And he was the chairman of that. He was the FCC chairman of the approval of 5G. It's sort of like the fox in the hen house. So there's a little bit of, and as I know you know that, you know, with the pharmaceutical business,
Mm-hmm.
that's true for the governance of the pharmaceutical industry. Well, that's sort of true also for the telecom.
Interesting. Well, that's the case in a lot of industries. Like we
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
head of Monsanto also,
yeah.
working for the FDA later or vice versa. And then we've got all
Right,
these
right,
different people in bed with each other. That's
right. I don't know. Do you remember L-tryptophan?
L-
There was a blood disease related to L-tryptophan.
okay.
L-tryptophan was being bottled up and sold by an Asian company to the U.S.
Mm.
My brother was the lead counsel on it. And he was interviewing one of the leading experts in the world on L-tryptophan. And it turned out my brother stumbled and found out that he was actually being paid by the company that was being challenged. So the experts were being influenced adversely in favor of their business, not the population.
Right. That is so interesting that you bring that up as a side note because my mentor, Dr. Robert Marshall, who owned Premier Research Labs supplement company. It's a really high quality nutraceutical company.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away 2 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
but the way that he originally started his business was because he was purchasing he was making a B vitamin, and he was purchasing some product that was the tryptophan from Asia, and it was supposed to
Interesting.
be non-genetically modified. It was supposed to
Right.
be really high clean stuff, but the vats that they were making it in, apparently it got it contaminated his batch, and it went out, and a lot of people got very sick, and I think something like 25 people got ill from it, and 24 people died, and he was the only one that didn't die from it. He actually
Oh my
sampled
goodness me. Oh my
It's just
goodness.
such an interesting thing that you would even bring that up and say that, the tryptophan and then the Asian company. That's very interesting. But there's definitely a lot of nefarious things going on
Right.
in these big companies where all this money is. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it.
There's no question. There's a faction that influences the marketplace, and we need to be aware of that, because in the case of 5G, because of when I would project from current knowledge where I would expect to see the technology and its impact on a human, I would say it's probably not a good thing. It's probably going to be very bad. By the way, because these signals are so fast, you know how a cell phone, you can be 4 or 5 miles away from a cell tower and actually will connect to it. With 5G, the speeds are so fast, it can only go 750 feet. So you're going to have one.
Dissipates or something, or how? Why does that?
The speed, it's so fast, it can only go a very little bit of space. And so it's very, very limited. In other words, on every other house in front of your home, there's going to be a cell tower, because it's going to be transmitting from the road, and it can only go 750 feet, which is almost one lot. So there's going to be a lot of them. And this is something we know, by the way.
And this isn't this already all over a bunch of
Oh,
states,
yeah.
like California?
Oh, yeah. It's terrible. And we know there's impact already. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But one of the things about one of the metrics you use to see if there's danger is what's the power level from the source. With a cell tower, you have 60 watts being transmitted from the cell tower. It can go 5 miles with the signal. With the cell towers in front of your home for 5G, you'll be able to go 750 feet, and it will take 20 watts, 1/3 the power level that's currently used with 4G. If you live within 1,000 feet of a cell tower, the 4G, you are 3 times more likely to have cancer.
Wow.
3 times more likely to have cancer.
And that's the 4G.
That's 4G. And here's going to be every other block, every other house. And we don't know what's going to happen. And I can't clearly state it well, but I know from engineering detail that there seems to be some concern that we should be worried about.
Well, I mean, I've already been reading some things online about some a 5G tower that was taken down by a school.
Yes. Yes.
You read about that?
Oh, yeah. And there was also in San Francisco fire department, they said there was a problem that the firemen were feeling, and that they basically pulled the towers out because of that.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting story. There's an electro-hypersensitive practitioner. I'm very a good friend of mine, and he's out of Portland. He calls me up on a Saturday morning, and he says, "Dan, my head is screaming. It's hurting. My eyes are screaming, hurting. What's going on?" And I said, "Well, how do I know? I'm not there." But I said, "Explain to me what's going on." "Oh, I just had this. I moved into this house. It's in the back, an unpopulated area, and I just got new cable service." I said, "Oh, go look at the router they gave you for the cable service." He went and looked, and he turned it upside down. It was a 5G router. He actually could feel it because he's hypersensitive.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
So is that something we can check ourselves? Or should we just look at the
Yeah,
bottom of our
just look at the
routers
bottom of the router. They'll
and
tell
it'll
you.
say 5G?
Yeah,
And then what do we do? Call the cable company and say we don't want a 5G router, or what do we say?
I would never accept a 5G router, ever. Think of it this way, it's the constant load that is the most dangerous to you. And let's say your son and daughter were in one room and they were using the 5G phones. You are closer to the front door, which is closest to the cell tower, and they are focusing those signals to your kids' cell phones, and they're going right through you. So all of a sudden, you're going to have high concentrated use by some, but it's going to affect others because they're line of sight paths that are being created in 5G.
Wow. So then how exactly, okay, I noticed something. Unfortunately, I, have been seeing less clients because I find that I accomplish more through social media and blogging and through my
Yep.
podcast. And so I just don't see as many clients as I used to. But this
Right.
also means that my screen time, I've gone up to sometimes 12 hours, I've noticed, a day. On my phone and my laptop and my iMac. I'm sitting here with 3 different screens around me.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm realizing I am literally on my screen. So I'm trying not to do it as much. I'm trying to kind of give myself some timeouts more.
Right.
But it's hard because it's probably 90% of it is work.
Do you have blue light glasses?
Well, so this was the thing that I keep talking about this with different guests, and I haven't done it yet. The only thing I've done is adjusted my screens with those
That's good.
with flux.
That's very good. You're taking the blue component out of the signal, and that's all you need to do.
Okay. Well, the problem is that I've noticed, and I had this conversation, and the reason I wanted to have you on again this month was because this month is my birthday month.
Oh,
and I'll
happy
be
birthday.
50. Thanks. And I've noticed that, and I just had this discussion with a pharmacist a couple days on my podcast about my eyes. And I said, I really feel like my eyesight, it goes blurry and then comes back throughout the day. Like it's not constantly out of focus. It just depends on, I don't know. So I'm assuming, he said it's the musculature. And I said, could the musculature be affected by constant screen time? And he said, yes. What's your perspective on eyesight and EMFs?
That's certainly true, by the way. There's a fatigue factor in focus. So there's a muscle energy use. But believe it or not, I wouldn't be worried about that. What I'd be worried about is the blue light. And your listening audience really should understand. It's not just your dry eye that we know about. When you look at a screen over periods of time, you have dry eye potentially. So putting drops into your eye doesn't fix the source. The source is literally the blue component of the screen in your cell phone. It's the screen in your tablet. It's the screen from your PCs. All of those.
The television as well, right?
Television as well. It's absolutely true. And then you're probably aware of premature macular degeneration. That's also in study been linked to blue light. One of the things we're now learning in clinics is that the eye is not only a window to the soul, it's also a window to the brain. It's literally interconnecting within the brain, and there's some common functions, supervisory functions that occur that are now being debilitated, and there's beginning to be links to those problem areas as a result of the blue light exposures. So
wow.
It's because of it's more prevalent than ever before. There seems to be a corollary, an increase in the human response being negative as opposed
now,
to positive.
what about okay, say if I've given myself some boundaries with my screen time, but I'm lying in bed and my husband gets on his phone And if I'm not, say I'm reading and he is on his phone and it's the lights are dim and I've got a lamp light, is his blue light affecting me if I'm not looking at his screen?
It's less likely to be true.
Okay.
It's less likely, but that sleep is, I think we talked about this last time, is very, very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
So you seem to be really diligent in and aware of those kinds of exposures.
Mm-hmm.
But get blue light glasses if you're looking at a tablet at night.
Yeah.
And this is why. It's the blue light that's mucking around with your melatonin,
Mm-hmm.
the creation of the melatonin. So you don't want to feel and fall asleep right away. Well, all of a sudden that's starting to muck around with your circadian rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have this cycle of stuff going on, and you have a cell phone next to your bed that's playing with your brain.
Right.
So you really got to make sure you have a sanctuary that's very clean, as clean as it can be.
Yeah. I went to this endocrine summit not too long ago, and I was blown away by the discussion about circadian rhythm
Oh,
and
yeah.
how the body can actually, like all the hormones, not just the melatonin, but everything is on a circadian rhythm.
Everything's screwed up.
Even our microbiome, the bacteria and our microbes actually are on a circadian rhythm.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
And by the way, when you're sleeping, your body's repairing. And so you have the problem with the mitochondrial build out again from the day's suppression. And if you're not in a sleeping cycle because you're being influenced by these kinds of exposures during the day or when you're going to bed, that's disrupting, and nobody can predict ultimately precisely what happens to you, but we know it impacts it. The notion about impacts, I don't think we've talked about this before, but one of the things we know is that it's not just a circadian rhythm. We know that the body is being influenced by the frontal lobe is being literally influenced by the exposures, and so you have those kinds of influences. You have influences in the brainstem, and then you have the circumventricular organ that's also being impacted. All of a sudden, all the supervisory functions of the body are also out of sync. In other words, you can be walking around during the day and your brain's sleeping at night because it's the brain pattern is out of sync. So now all of a sudden it's even worse. So having those circadian rhythms managed, where you try to find a cleanest environment, is really sort of pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to realize that it's really profound. It's almost probably before anything else, even before, you consider gut health and diet, because how are you going to really digest your food well if you aren't even on the right rhythm that your body functions at optimally? So it's like we're all short circuiting,
No, that's a really, really important point. When a diagnostician looks at leaky gut, right? If they don't fix the pattern in the brain, they're not going to fix the leaky gut because everything's out of sync, right? And I think that's a very, very important point you just made.
Yeah, it's almost like the more we sorry, these dogs. I keep muting my mic because
it's okay.
They're just in a complete wrestling match over here. Anyway, they're BFFs. Anyway, it seems like that everything we're doing, like taking supplements and eating right and getting fresh air and exercise, it seems like it would be so much more effective if we were fully plugged in. I mean, not plugged in as into the Wi-Fi, but I mean if our energetic body was working optimally, because we really just are energetic beings, aren't we? And this seems like it is a big hindrance, like massive.
Yeah, we talk about like 80% of cancers are environmental, 20% are genetic. So the story goes.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know
And
that.
if you look at that 80%, the toxin that's emerging potentially to be the most significant influence on the disrupted body is electromagnetic radiation. The ambient in your room, like for example, 20 years ago, when kids went to school and they were working in a classroom, they had pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
There was close to zero electromagnetic radiation, radio frequency signals within the environment.
Mm-hmm.
A cell phone directly to your head is 1.6 watts per kilogram. That's the power level, the energy level, 1.6 watts. If you go into a classroom today where all the kids have their cell phones, they have their laptops and everything else on, it's 0.5 watts. That is 1/3 the power level of a direct cell phone to the head. Constant load all day.
Wow. So it's like
And
if they just had the cell phone on their
right,
head all
it's
day.
literally exactly like that. And
Wow.
then so you say, well, that's not a big deal. Well, as you know, there seems to be far more neurological and physiological changes with kids with behavioral problems, with other kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
ADHD. All of those are directly linked to exposures. And today we have 0.5 watts within the classroom all day, 5 days a week, 10 months out of the year.
And now we've got 5G. So
And
all
then
of each
5G.
and every computer that these children
Right,
is connecting to that 5G in some
right, exactly.
way, right? Um, or is it just cell phones? No, it's the
It's
router.
everything.
Like I
It's
said.
everything.
So
Absolutely everything.
I was just looking for this and I found it. It's actually CBS. It's CBS that did this. It's a CBS morning article, and it's after several childhood cancer cases at one school, parents question radiation from the cell tower. I
Yeah,
mean, that there's, I don't know how many, I'm looking for it here, but the types of cancers. And that's the other thing is we're thinking, okay, well, what type of cancer could it cause? But I don't
right.
think they know, because I think it's
They
just
they don't know.
like we started before we started recording here, we were talking about I was mentioning telomeres, and the reason I brought it up is because, again, going back to the anti-aging month that I'm doing here,
Right.
or the age gracefully month, let's call it. And what types, and so I've been doing a lot of research before I launched this month, and I was looking at the things that are the most aging to our
Yeah,
bodies. And of course, one of the top ones, which was really depressing, was alcohol.
right.
Alcohol, but no, not sleeping. And so, and of course, environmental exposure, like what
Right,
exactly we're exposing
right.
ourselves to, and stress, of course. But stress can be an umbrella that all of these things fall under, including the electromagnetic frequency, which can actually then in turn affect your sleep. But ultimately, it's like, who knows what kind of cancer? It doesn't have to be a skin cancer or an eye cancer or a brain cancer. It can be colon cancer. It can be any cancer, because what we're doing is we're just putting this toxic load on the body, and whatever fragility you have in your DNA or in your body to begin with is where you're going to break, right? So
Yeah.
for one person it could be colon cancer, and the next person it could be like an autoimmune disease. So it's very scary.
Yeah, I actually I appreciate you bringing that up because when I wrote Radiation Nation, trying to share a little bit of my knowledge of this for the public, and one of the individuals that read my book was Dr. Prasad. He's probably the most well-known radiologist in the country. He's a brilliant man, has done great contribution to the human race with the work he's done over the years. And I said to him, when a girl, 12 years old, puts a cell phone in her back pocket that transmission can impact the DNA of her egg within the egg. And if that happens and there's an impact and the cell mutates and or is DNA damaged, and we were talking about that before, it can DNA, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about that in a minute. And he said he didn't believe what I was saying. About a year and a half later, he called me up and he said, Dan, we had a woman. She used technology all her life. It was around her all the time. And she had a baby. That baby had the most strange cancers we've ever seen.
Mm.
And we can't explain it. And then I remembered what you said.
Mm.
And to that point you just made before,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what cancers is. And there's sort of weird things that are occurring because we don't know. So let's talk about what that is. And I want to contrast the cell danger from cancer versus other things.
Okay.
When you talk about oxidative stress,
Mm-hmm.
oxidative stress, as you pointed out, is an umbrella. It basically takes and imbalances your free radicals to the antioxidants of your body. And so that imbalance begins, and your body's beginning to react to it in different ways. The reaction of a cell when it's constantly exposed to a transmission, it can create a stress case in which the encapsulation of the cell is actually penetrated by the calcium channel within the body. So when it penetrates the cell, oxide builds up within the cell. Chemicals start messing around with each other. And that's how they actually damage the DNA. That's how they mutate the cell.
Wow.
So when we talk about what we're just speaking about, that young girl who was exposed, Dr. Prasad said, I believe that's may be the case here because we can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And she lost a child who was almost passed away almost immediately.
Wow.
And so that was sort of a sad thing that happened for that problem, and maybe a modern thing. But here's the other point. Mm-hmm. This is dwarfed. The cell damage to potential cancer is dwarfed by the real problems of oxidative stress. You may have heard of cell danger response, CDR.
No.
CDR is actually somewhat recent characterization of how a cell responds to a toxin. It says, I'm not going to talk to my neighbor because something outside is bothering me. So it's beginning to respond. And all these dysfunctions within the body, they are CDR kinds of responses that are somewhat unpredictable. And it's the CDR that we're beginning to understand is potentially what is occurring in the communications within the infrastructure of the cell, in the brain. I mentioned about kids in school and the worries they have and how they're more angry, how there's more kinds of changes within that environment, partially could be attributed to the increase in electromagnetic radiation. Mm-hmm. They're all to the frontal lobe. That's the most susceptible part of the brain. And that is the most susceptible where if you had a concussion and I took a cell phone to your head, you're more likely to have a danger response than a normal person. Why? Because your blood-brain barrier is down. That protection that's within the brain of the blood-brain barrier, when it's down, it actually lets more potential emissions into the brain.
Wow, that's really scary.
Now what's interesting about this is, I said 1.6 watts, right? Mm-hmm. And the classroom is 0.5 watts. It takes less than 0.1 watts to change a cell in the frontal lobe through research that's occurred. So it's not like, it's 15 times less than a 4G signal. today. And it's to the frontal lobe. So, for example, when you have earbuds that you use that are Bluetooth, they're 0.3 watts, 3 times more than the level that we know can damage a cell.
So are you saying basically that somebody with a traumatic brain injury is probably more susceptible to electromagnetic frequency and damage more in their brain?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're also saying that, I didn't miss it, that the headphones, like these little guys, the little white Apple pods,
I hate them.
Oh gosh, I use them so much. I knew it though. It's not anything that's a surprise to me.
Yeah.
It's just that
I mean,
so darn convenient.
let's be honest. You're probably going to be fine. But there are some that won't be.
I don't know. I mean, I have a traumatic brain injury and I have bad eyesight. You know, so it's just scary. But
you're playing with fate a little bit here.
No, there's too many things. I do what I can, but you know, it's kind of like this discussion about autism that's been going on for several years now. That's just very heated and controversial and whatnot, and very sided. It's very polarized. I've always believed, because we've worked with autistic children for so long, that I've always, in talking to all these different parents and their perception of what could have taken place and why they think their kid might have autism. And I've decided that I think it's just everything. I think it's just this huge cesspool of stress, and it includes electromagnetic frequency, and it includes vaccines, and it includes you know, I mean, if you have a child whose mother is constantly exposed to electromagnetic frequency, and then she's got estrogen dominance and gut issues, and then she manages to get pregnant, and then that baby's born with this toxic burden, and that baby's born, and then they vaccinate the child, which we know maybe help in some ways to many, you know, to what science says, but it also is a burden. It's a toxic load on that baby's body. Naturally, it's going to cause something. It's going to cause some kind of problems, and some children are just more susceptible than others.
There's no question. That's a very important point you're making. And let me expand a little bit on the electromagnetic radiation side. In San Francisco, a couple of years ago, there was a study done with first trimester women, and they gave them meters, and they monitored their exposures all day for some period of time. What they found was, from this small population study, you were 3 times more likely to have a miscarriage in the first trimester. That's serious. So that was one point. The other point is it can occur in the womb. You can have a laptop in your lap at night when you're on the internet and be pregnant. And you have an RF signal that's going to the Wi-Fi, but also touching your child. And so we know there can be potential exposures that are negative in vitro as well as when they're growing up.
Wow.
So it can start very, very early in life.
Do you think our bodies are or will evolve to protect themselves more in some ways, or shut down certain receptors to avoid certain complications?
I absolutely agree with that 100%. And in fact, it's very, very evolutionary. We are an evolutionary being, and we've always evolved with our environment. So our bodies still haven't figured out what to do, because honestly, it's only been the last 5-10 years that everyone's walking around with a cell phone.
Yeah.
You know, before that, they didn't. 30 years ago, I had a cell phone. I had no one to call because no one had phones. I'm making it up, right? None of us had phones.
Right.
And all of a sudden, your 6-year-old child has a phone.
Yeah, an iPad, right?
Right.
Yeah, or
Think of
they've
that.
got some toys that are interactive, that are digital.
Right.
some way or connect to the Wi-Fi. I mean,
Right.
my mom bought me a Roomba for my birthday. I've always wanted one. And I'm like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, should I activate the Wi-Fi feature on this thing just so I can use my phone to make it work? I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And then I'm like,
No,
yes, I will.
that's
Just to
terrible.
try it, just to try it. It's terrible. You're right. So what about this? Have you heard about this Whoop? Whoop, WHOOP? It's like an Apple Watch on steroids. It basically is. It's a membership. You pay like $30 a month, and
Uh-huh.
it's a watch. It's a massive screen as well. It's like a huge,
Right.
it's got a big cracker, and it covers your whole wrist. And it basically monitors your sleep. It monitors your workouts. It tells you how much, your recovery, if it's time to work out, if it's time to sleep, if it's time to eat, how your caloric intake is. It like
Right.
monitors everything. Now I would imagine its ability to do that while you're sleeping. What do you, I know what you're going to say, but just for the sake of it, what do you think it's
I'll
something?
tell you a story. A few years ago, I like yoga, and my yoga instructor on Christmas came by and said, "Look what I got! A watch that tells me my heartbeat and all those kinds of body functions I want to know about." And I looked at her and I said, "What are you, nuts? You know I'm an electromagnetic radiation guy. You have a pulsing signal being constantly transmitted every minute of the day to your tablet, your cell phone." I said, "That's crazy. If you can find something that does store the data and transmits it periodically, that may make sense. But if it's constantly transmitting, it could be dangerous."
And constantly pulsing as well, like
Constantly pulsing.
constantly.
Yeah. Actually, I'm working with a company now. Um, the practitioner who is very hypersensitive, electrohypersensitive, we're doing work with trying to quantify a bit of this kind of stuff. And he could not wear that because it was constantly looking for data. If it didn't find the data, it kept on looking for 4 hours. Looking.
Wow.
And so it's constantly looking for information and then transmitting it. And I agree with that, but you got to make sure that it's only periodical, or it can be, because you minimize the exposures, and one instant of exposure is not a long-term exposure, and it's likely to have very little, if any, impact on you.
But it's that constant.
But it's the
So
constant load.
it's like um when you go for acupuncture, they basically, there's these meridians of energy that flow through our body.
Right.
And so they'll take a needle and they'll stick it in your big toe, and they're able to decongest whatever blockages of energy you have to your gallbladder, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
pretty, and this is scientifically proven now. Like even
Right.
insurance covers acupuncture. We know it's true. We know we have these freeways of energy, and we know that using these little needles that manipulate the energy
Yeah.
can clear it and affect it in positive ways. Well, if you have a watch like that on your arm, and who knows what points run through your arm? It's probably your heart and I
Oh
don't know, they
yeah.
all have names like triple warmer 7 and all these different types of
Right. Right.
points that
Exactly.
access your stomach and your
Right.
spleen and your heart and your respiratory tract. And you've got this randomly pulsing into these energetic
Right.
frequencies on your body. It just seems like a crapshoot to me.
It's terrible. And by the way, you don't need it, because multiple data sets over a short interval of time is not a metric that is representative of what the true performance of that metric is. And so it's the engineers designing these, not the medical community that better understands the data that's being gathered.
I see.
Biometrics, I really believe in biometrics, by the way. I absolutely think it's very important, but you got to be careful that you're killing yourself to gain more data about how you're going to
About
live
how you
longer.
can live long. That is amazing. That's so funny. I mean, that's what we're doing now,
Yeah,
aren't we?
yeah,
I mean,
it's really
that's really
true.
what we're doing. Yeah. So, okay. So tell me, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but I heard that DefenderShield has some new technologies coming out, and I wanted to know about that.
Oh, yeah, we do. Well, I'm a little bit fanatic about pregnant women. And it's literally because I know that even the most minuscule of exposures can have a catastrophic long-term impact to the child as they grow up. So we have belly bands coming out that protect the womb. We have baby
Wow.
blankets that they use during the day. There's caps we have coming out that is going to protect the brain,
Oh
which
my
is
goodness.
really, 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 really important. We haven't had a chance to talk about this, but when the brain gets screwed up like that, if you don't find a way of realigning that, you will have systemic long-term health issues. And so I think it's pretty important to try to protect the child's head at the most significant growing point when they're least able to defend themselves. So
Right.
we have those kinds of lines.
When all of the development is taking place.
Oh
They're
yeah,
saying that,
exactly.
I think I learned this from you actually, is that when they're, when you have this little kid whose brain is in formation and they're staring at a tablet and it's just going straight into their
Yeah,
frontal lobe when their frontal lobe is trying to
right,
grow. And
right,
wow.
exactly.
So that's brilliant. I think that's,
So we
I
have
mean,
that. The glasses, I mean, I'm pretty pushy about blue light glasses. You should get some. I'll send you some.
okay. Well, I know I was talking with your crew, and we were talking about the giveaway that I'll be doing here shortly. Probably by the time this launches, we'll be doing it. So we're going to have some great gifts to give away from a few of the sponsors, including you guys. And
Uh-huh.
people are the most excited about this stuff. Now,
Yeah.
what makes your products different from, other products that claim to be fending off? And we've talked about this before, but for people who don't know, these little tiny Q links or whatever that you stick on the back of your phone, or these little tiny.
As you may recall,
Mhm.
um, I have 40 years of engineering experience in the space.
Yes.
There are very, very few, if any, that have the equivalent as we do. And it's all based on engineering that we do. And believe it or not, when I tell you we do something, it's not the testing I've done that you can feel comfortable with. I go get independent studies outside the company with certified people that have the skill set to do that. And
Great.
so when they say something does this or something does that, it's because they said it, not us. And so independent evaluation of the products is really sort of the only best way you can recognize what you're hearing is legitimate. And so when you talk about other products in the marketplace, you really want to look at, show me the independent work that really substantiates the claim you're making. Quite honestly, there are many things out there that are not based on physics. I have no idea what it's based on. So I would be skeptical if I were you.
Right. Maybe it's the same physics that the flat earthers use.
Right.
Well, I think that well, this is one of the reasons why I've always been such a fan and have promoted and endorsed your products and your book,
we appreciate
Radiation Nation. It's because I think most of my listeners like me because the products that I represent and endorse and sell, I do because of that very reason, because the research has not been done by the creator.
Yeah. And it's wonderful because you're an informed critic. You really have experience to help guide so many who really get confused across all these health products.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
Simple. If I wanted to lose weight, I could never figure out how to do it because there's so many different ways to do it.
Right. And you get online and it's like this endless amount of resources.
Right.
Yeah.
So you need somebody to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Because it is complicated.
Well, I'm
So we
super
appreciate
excited.
that.
Yeah, and I'm excited about these new products. I have some of your products already, and I do need to get the glasses. So
You
those are
do.
available now, right?
What's that?
Are those glasses available now? Are they?
Yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
good.
They're
Okay, good.
all available.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, because I'm done. I'm done with just trying to fix the screens. I just need to walk around with a big helmet on that has a blue light, like what they
So
call
in one clinic, when a really hypersensitive, extremely hypersensitive person comes in, the very first thing they do is put a pair of glasses on.
Oh, really?
Literally, that's how important it is to hypersensitive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about people like the Whoop thing. I was talking to you about that
Yeah.
watch that has all that fancy stuff. It was
Right.
on the Joe Rogan podcast. And, I was thinking he's not going to care. He's such a bro, and he's
Right. Right.
like a bull as well. A guy,
Right.
the guy gets choked out for a living. Like he just likes to roll around and do jujitsu. And I don't think he's going to be someone who is sensitive. Whereas somebody like myself, who is
Right.
like very sensitive. And so I think that these people like myself, like the canaries in the coal mine, I call us, it's like a good indication. It's good to look at people like us and say, okay, how bad is this 5G really? And if I'm
Right.
walking around with a, headache and you
Right.
probably want to go ahead and,
Yeah. By the way, you may recall 20% or more of the population is electric hypersensitive. That we
really?
learned through research. It's actually more like 30% these days.
Hmm.
But we have many studies that talk about a minimum of 20.
Interesting.
Of that, 80% are women.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
because of the hormones, because of the um, lack of zinc, the
interesting.
uh, um, the aluminum from the pills you've been taking all these
Birth
years.
control pills and
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Wow.
there's no doubt that that's a legitimate statistic.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
are a canary in the coal mine
yeah.
for that reason.
It does make sense. Well, so you're saying 20% are electromagnetic sensitive. That doesn't mean that the rest of the population doesn't get affected. It just means we can feel it.
Right.
Right. So
Exactly.
they're getting affected. They just don't
Oh, no
feel it.
question about it. They just don't know it, as
Well,
you
I,
pointed out.
I would love to go down another road another time in regards to, and this might be out of both of our wheelhouse, which is you mentioned zinc. And I have been really interested in mineral balance. That was my
Yep.
mentor, was really big on pH balance and balancing the minerals in the body. And then I had another girl on my podcast not too long ago who was talking about earthing and walking at literally earthing, not buying like earthing mats, but walking out and putting your
Yeah.
feet on the ground every day and bringing balance to the minerals in the body, because
Yep.
that's what keeps these electrical meridians in the body healthy
Exactly.
and flowing. And so when we have a magnesium imbalance or we have a zinc deficiency, it literally is like we have short circuits. So
Right.
all of a sudden things like electromagnetic frequency and autoimmune
Yeah.
diseases or issues,
No
they are
question.
all of a sudden they're triggered further.
So,
So
by the way,
mhm.
100% of those who were diagnosed with CDR and had emotional challenges all lacked zinc. It was a metric for a very problematic response.
Wow. And
Yeah, it's serious.
yeah, and the way that it's such a complex world as well, because the way that the minerals work is they all have this like synergistic mineral that works with them. So
Right.
if you're,
Right.
if you're low on magnesium, you're probably low in calcium. If you're low, like there's these synergistic things that
Yeah.
happen with the minerals. So
Yeah. Not
very
only
fascinating.
that, but there is also a carbon monoxide that's out of ratio with oxygen when there's a low level of zinc.
Really?
Yeah, really interesting.
So that's going to affect a lot of things. That's going to affect
Yes. And who knows why?
function.
Who knows what it is? It really becomes complicated.
Wow. Well, what we definitely have unraveled today is that it's like a trigger. It's like a root. It's almost like a loaded gun,
Yeah.
and when you expose yourself to these things, you pull
Right.
that trigger. It's like, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's
Exactly.
going to hit or how
Exactly.
many things it's going to hit?
And you don't really know it. And everyone's different. For example, we look for a leaky gut
Mm-hmm.
right away in one of the clinics I work
Mm-hmm.
with hypersensitive. Half of them have it, half of them don't.
Makes sense. Right.
Right.
Well,
So it's
that's
not definitive.
right. Yeah, because who knows, with one person, you've got a genetic predisposition to certain cancers, and another person has genetic predisposition to
Right.
depression and emotional
Yeah.
imbalance. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you just never know. It really is a crapshoot, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Well, as usual, this hour just zipped by, and I'm so grateful to you as always, and I'm really excited. I'm sure by the time this launches, I'll have all the information about the new stuff that you
Yeah. We
have
have a
out.
bunch of stuff coming out.
Yeah, and then we'll also it'll be around Thanksgiving that I think I'll.
Oh, well, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
enjoy working with you, actually.
Thank you. And everybody always comments on these podcasts and how much they like you. And Radiation Nation is always a hit. So, and I
Well,
recommend
that's good.
everybody
A
get.
little dry, but
Oh man, I loved it. I zipped through that as well because I felt like, it resonated with me so much. I couldn't believe,
right.
because that was right around the time I was really learning about the effects and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I loved
Yeah.
it.
And at that time, no one knew.
Hmm.
Yet it was all available to all of us. And that's why we wrote the book, is there was so much that was now clear.
Hmm.
Yet there seemed to be a lot of controversy still for those in the know.
Yeah.
It's not controversial, in my opinion. You
Right.
can look at the data, and if you conclude there's no problems, I know for sure you don't understand anything
Right. I don't know, whose data are you looking at?
because
Um,
you're not looking at the facts.
right. It's
But
kind
if
of
you,
like the pesticide thing,
yeah, right,
genetically modified thing. Genetically modified thing is, it's not been tested to the degree that it should be, but we do
right,
know now. We do know
right,
that it's causing problems. We know that glyphosate is a massive.
right. It's as simple as that.
So it's just like,
Be
what are you
careful.
doing what are you doing to mitigate the problem?
Yeah, be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
That's all it is. No one's watching out for you. You have the responsibility of watching out for yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. Just because someone sells it, an iPhone sells it, or Apple sells it, or
Yeah,
Spectrum is selling it, doesn't mean that it's good for you.
right.
They
They
have,
say keep it 5/8 of an inch away from your head in legal terms.
right. That's funny. 5/8 of an inch. Hang on, let me get out my ruler. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you giving me a chance to chat again with you. I
here. Of
enjoyed it.
course.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for your
much.
work. Thanks for your work. I really love it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
bye. Hey, it's me again. Yay. How was that? That was incredible, right, guys? I just want to thank him so much. I always learn so much. And remind you that Defender Shield is going to be giving away a lot of really great gifts on this giveaway. Excuse the sound in the background. Somebody showed up and decided to do some serious electrical tool usage very close to my office. Um, so go to healthygutgirl _ and join the giveaway. Just look for the photo that has all of the pictures of the prizes. And if you don't see it there, it's not up yet. Healthygutgirl _ And don't forget that Jigsaw Magnesium is donating, and so is the Colostrum Sovereign Laboratories with their wonderful products and Truth Treatments. All of these products can be looked at on, almost all of them, on myhealthygutgirl.com. Click on the shop page and check it out on there. You'll see all the different companies that that sponsor us and that also have coupon codes, and you can get discounts. So that's exciting. So thanks for joining us, and talk to you soon.